John is in the middle of a vision. It's the book of Revelation, chapters 6 and 7, and John has been sent to this remote, small island known as Patmos. It's just 13 square miles in size, and he's been sent there as an act of political banishment. As we read, some may be quick to suggest he's been eating the special mushrooms growing on the island, but we need to remember that this was a particular style of writing of New Testament times. The book of Revelation shows us the impossible is possible. So are you ready? Here we go. I looked, and there came a great earthquake. The sun became black as sackcloth. The full moon became like blood, and the stars of the sky fell to the earth as the fig tree drops its winter fruit when shaken by a gale. The sky vanished like a scroll rolling itself up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place. And John goes on. After this I looked, and there was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, from all tribes and peoples and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, robed in white, with palm branches in their hands. They cried out in a loud voice, saying, "Salvation belongs to our God who is seated on the throne and to the Lamb." Then one of the elders addressed me. He said to me, "These are they who have come out of the great ordeal. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb." Robes made white by washing them in blood. A sky vanishing and a red moon. Stars falling from the sky like old fruit blown from a tree. These are concepts I'm not really used to. But people from every tribe, nation, and language, I can relate to that. As an Australian living in Korea, early in 2010, I travelled to the USA to participate in the Community of Christ World Conference. We were there with people from 50 nations. But I never would have guessed that a lesson would come from San Francisco International Airport on my trip over. Having just cleared customs and rechecking my bags, I was ready to make my way to the next gate. I stepped into the airport ready to be embraced by America for the first time in about a year. However, as I walked, the very first thing I noticed were these replica World War I airplanes suspended from the ceiling. They were hung in flying pairs, simulating mid-air battle. One had bullet wounds streaked down its side, and the other had the bomb door open on its belly. I stopped, and looking up, I envisaged mid-air explosions that replaced the sun's light, smoke billowing from flashing fires that covered the sky, and the earth shaking from bombs falling time after time. The living hell that is war. All of a sudden, the Revelation scripture doesn't seem so strange, so distant. As you would expect, others continued to hurry past to their gate, and no one seemed to be worried by the World War I bombers hanging over their heads. But I couldn't help but stop and stare. After a few moments, I walked on towards my gate. As if the first scene wasn't enough, I was then greeted in the next corridor with a history of broken dreams. It was a historical display of poker machines and casino games from early 1900s. There were wooden slot machines and wheels of fortune. And as I took each step, I could imagine person after person in front of these machines, people who had seen their lives, their dreams, their hopes disappear into the blackness like their coin that disappears into the darkness of the coin slot. The throne where they worshipped was these old wooden gaming machines. This was a throne of false hope and artificial dreams. But before I'm accused of being an America hater, the place where I live isn't exactly perfect either. Living in South Korea, just 30 miles up the freeway, roads are lined with barbed wire. Things that appear to be tunnels are actually explosive tank traps. Once every 3 or 4 months, 14 million people in the capital city of Seoul completely stop what they are doing. Whether it's walking on the street, driving in their car, or playing on a sports field, they stop entirely what they are doing and go inside a building, all for an invasion drill practice. War, gambling, oppression, division, displacement due to natural disasters. These problems in our world are so huge, so massive, so seemingly impossible to solve that we sometimes just stand there hopeless, in the dark, with the world appearing to close in around us, staring up, wondering why others don't even seem to notice. In this instant, a lot of people turn to the book of Revelation. Some think it predicts the future of the end times, a prophecy of doom and the wrath of God for our times unless we simply believe in Jesus. They claim that the volcanoes erupting, the wars breaking out, the earthquakes in Haiti and Chile, the floods in Pakistan and East Asia, that these are the signs of the end times. Well, I'm sorry. I don't believe that's the case. The book of Revelation uses language and metaphor that is complicated and sometimes lost on us here today. But yet it would have spoken to the people John was writing to from that tiny island of Patmos. Let me put it this way. Think of a love ballad on the radio today that sings, "My love for her is as deep as the ocean." We know what that means. We feel that. For John's audience, they knew what he was talking about when he spoke of white robes washed in blood. They felt that. They, like John, knew what it was like to be persecuted by this world, to be thrown out of society, oppressed or even killed because of their faith. Revelation is John's love ballad to them, and it includes great hope. It's about the hope and the love of God that exceeds anything this world can throw at us. It's that there is the possible from the impossible. Listen to what God is saying when these problems seem so impossible. In Revelation, it follows, still talking about those who were gathered. For this reason, they are before the throne of God and worship Him day and night within His temple. and the one who is seated on the throne will shelter them. They will hunger no more and thirst no more. The sun will not strike them, nor any scorching heat. For the Lamb at the center of the throne will be their shepherd, and he will guide them to springs of the water of life, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. In a world where the moon is blood red, the sky has been rolled up, the world blackened, and seemingly all hope lost. In the midst of darkness, pain, and suffering, in the world of impossibility, the text asks those who are believers, are you ready for hope? Are you ready for love? Because that is what is available to you. The hope resides in each one of those faithful that are committed to the very end. They are encouraged because they are sheltered with a different kind of protection than that of this world. The protection of the Lamb, of the Christ. I continued to walk through that corridor in the airport that day, with all of these images playing in my mind. I walked into the bathroom to wash my hands. And as I went over to grab a paper towel, I got to the dispenser and I noticed a sticker that had been placed on the casing. It was just a simple sticker. No authorized by Homeland Security, no trademark, no counter-company promotion, no stamp to prove its worth. Just a simple sticker that was trying to make a difference. It read, "Are you ready to make a difference to this world? Please take only what you really need to use." Someone, somewhere, has taken the first step to making a difference. Now, it may not seem like much, but I can tell you in that moment, it made a difference to me. Some might say, well, I'll take as much as I like. What does it matter what the sticker says? You see, Revelation is calling us to look beyond ourselves. Revelation is calling us to live somewhat more controversially, perhaps even more costly to ourselves and our public esteem. Because we refuse to conform to a world whose demands are not compatible with the teachings of Christ. We don't do this because we want to stand out or because we want to be different, but because we know the inherent love and peace that is found when we turn ourselves towards God. Christ has made a difference in my life, and I don't want to go back to the old way. Instead, as Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, we are God's co-workers. We're an active part of God's work. Revelation is not talking about end times, but about hope and joy that comes when others would see only suffering and despair. The white robes represent baptism, and the active verb washing by blood talks of the ongoing sacrifice of each of those individuals and the sacrifice they were making. Making in a time where Roman society would have you tortured, exiled like John, or even killed because of your Christianity. But their response, we remember, is with palm leaves, showing that it was a celebration, just like when Jesus rode into town on a donkey in the Gospels. Revelation is about claiming and sustaining Christ's peace where there is horrific violence, joy where there is death, justice where there is injustice. And folks, even though John was speaking to the Christians in the first century, I hate to tell you, but violence, spiritual death, and injustice still exist in our time. Yes, it exists in the complex, in the seemingly impossible, But these also exist in the small, everyday decisions that we make as individuals. Revelation stirs us as hearers to action, radical action, because of the difference Christ makes in one's life. It calls us to turn back toward worshipping God, because worshipping God is where we as creation find the greatest joy. When problems are this big, it reminds us that we need God more than ever. And God needs us more than ever. In this moment, perhaps you need to turn back toward God and make Christ your focus again. It is there that great joy awaits you. This moment, there is one of you sitting here that can make a difference as a disciple of Christ to a community, to a tribe, or to a nation. And doubt may enter your mind and you may think, yes, but what difference can I really make? It just seems so impossible. Well, some thought Roman oppression would never cease. Some thought it would be impossible for human beings to fly. Some think even now that the peaceable kingdom is impossible. But I say to you, don't deny the sense of the Spirit as it stirs within you. As a disciple of Christ, clothed in white, know here and now that you can make a difference, that it is possible. God promises that Christ will be your protection and bring overflowing joy as every tear is wiped away. The peaceable kingdom is possible.